Hello friends and welcome to Picture Astrology. In the series of planets through various houses, today we will learn about Saturn in 11th house for an Aquarius Ascendant horoscope. So when Aquarius, the 11th sign, is rising in a chart, Saturn becomes the Lord of the Ascendant itself because Aquarius is owned by Saturn. So we have Lord of Ascendant Saturn placed in the 11th house, which contains the sign of Sagittarius. And as you know, any house where the Ascendant Lord is placed impacts your life throughout, since the birth till the very old age, because Ascendant signifies who your true personality is. Therefore, this is a very important placement and we will learn all about it in next few minutes. So before we begin the analysis, let's see how does Saturn behaves when the Aquarius rises in a horoscope. So we have Aquarius in the first house, which is the 11th sign. And as we know, Saturn owns two signs, the sign of Capricorn and the sign of Aquarius. And Capricorn falls in the 12th house here, where Aquarius is the first house. So these two are pretty opposite houses. Lord of 12th is generally considered a malefic, whereas Lord of first house is always the first rate benefic planet in the horoscope. Now in this case, because Saturn owns the very first house, Saturn will behave mostly as a benefic planet. It will have some negative impacts because of its natural malefic tendency, as well as because the Lord of 12th house. However, on the whole, the lordship of first house will overpower this placement of Saturn. So this Saturn will have a direct impact on 12th house related matters and definitely first house related matters, because both of these houses are owned by Saturn, and the 11th house because Saturn is placed here. And we will talk about all these three houses and how Saturn impacts. However, Saturn also has some special aspect in Vedic astrology. So Saturn aspects third house from its position, which in this case would be the first house itself. Saturn aspects 7th from itself, that will be the 5th house, and Saturn also aspect the 10th house from itself, which in this case will be the 8th house of your longevity. So in next few minutes we will also talk about the impacts of Saturn's aspect on these three houses. So let's begin by talking about the first house related things first. So first house, one of the most important significance is your physique, how your body is. Now what happens when Saturn aspects it? See, there are two things to note. First, Saturn has, as we discussed, both benefic as well as negative tendency. However, Saturn is the Lord of the first house itself. So aspect of Saturn is not going to be bad for an Aquarius Ascendant horoscope. So physically, there is a lot of Saturnine feature. What I mean by Saturnine feature is, one, Saturn is a little tall planet, and Aquarius is an ascendant because it's an airy sign. People are generally taller. They are leaner. They tend towards being skinnier rather than fatty. They have very little tendency to acquire fat for two reasons. One, we have the airy sign Aquarius rising. At the same time, Saturn is an aspect. Both of these things makes the body leaner and it will be fit. They are prone to do hard work. They can work hard and work for long duration, because Saturn, as you know, is one of the slowest, in fact the slowest planet in Vedic astrology. At the same time, it's slow and steady. It doesn't Saturn signifies hard work. If there is one planet in the entire zodiac which signifies working diligently and with complete focus, it is Saturn. So these people, physically they tend towards being little tall, being more lean rather than plump or fatty. They are very adaptable. They can easily work really hard, and at the same time they can keep their mental focus rather easily. They don't generally lose calm unless there are negative or malefic influences on Saturn and Moon, because Aquarius as an ascendant is, many people call it as a philosophical ascendant sign. So they generally are happy within themselves. They don't try to or tend to trouble others unless other poke their nose in their work. So they mind their own business. They work with full dedication and focus. Early in childhood they may face some physical issue because Saturn is having an aspect and Saturn is also a malefic. So in childhood they may have some medical issues, especially if the first house has some negative influence or Moon, then people tend to get cold and cough very easily. But as their age progresses, especially beyond 7+ years of age, they tend to develop very good physique. So there have been instances where I've seen horoscope of people, parents come and say, oh, their kid remain kind of sick very often and they have this kind of placement, but they recover very well after 7-8 years of age. So early childhood sickness is not such an issue. So overall, from the physique and mental perspective, this is a very, very good placement. And since Saturn is placed in the 11th house, which is the house of gains, these people tend to make slow and steady progress throughout their lives. So as their life progresses, their life's graph is going to be like this, always slowly going up. Unless there are other influences, they don't tend to get something like a jerky life or an exponential rise suddenly. However, it's very rare that their graph comes down. They would keep on adding more benefits. They will gain little bit and then add more onto it slowly and steadily. And when it comes to spending money, they are really thoughtful in that as well. See, there are two reasons for that again. Saturn is the lord of 12th house. So whenever Saturn is lord of 12th house, person is not known to be a prolific spender generally, unless Saturn is placed there or there are malefic influences. Secondly, Saturn is in the 11th house, which is 12th from the 12th. So it is not a great placement for the 12th house itself, which is good because 12th house is a negative house. Negative of negative is sort of positive. So what this basically tells about 12th houses, they are very thoughtful they are not prolific spender, or they would party, they would have social circles. See, 11th house is the house of social circles, of your friends. So it's not that they are shy or they don't run away from social gatherings. They are not introvert. However, they don't mingle, they are not extremely extrovert either. They don't go to the pub and spend all night there as well. I mean, at least this placement of Saturn doesn't indicate it. If there are other things like Rahu and Ketu in the 12th, or they influence Saturn, or Jupiter is malefically placed, that's a different story. But when it comes to this placement of Saturn, they would always give enough thought and will lead a balanced life. And especially their friend circle would also be people of their similar nature. I mean, they wouldn't have see, Saturn is an old planet which is placed in the sign of Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is another sign which shows wisdom. So Saturn in the sign of wisdom, so they get friends who are full of wisdom. They get good advice from the friend. Many times they earn money by taking advice of others in their professional life, and they are good at listening at the same time. We saw that Saturn's aspect on the first house, and Saturn being the lord of ascendant makes them slow, very steady person. They would have enough patience to listen and learn from others and implement in their life, and this really helps them, and in turn they help their friends as well. It's two-way street for them. So overall, again, when it comes to the 11th house matters of progress in life, of material prosperity in life, this is a very good placement. And as I said, as their life progresses, they keep on making progress slow and steady. Now let's talk about the 5th house matters, and there are many things which 5th house can show. However, I would especially like to talk about kids, and the reason being, Saturn has a mixed influence on this aspect of life. I wouldn't go into all the details of the astrological reasoning, but one of the reason is Saturn is not a Jiva Karaka. Jupiter is the Jiva Karaka, and second, Saturn is both benefic plus malefic in this horoscope. So what does this aspect of Saturn on the 5th house do? Two things for sure. One, generally delay in getting kids. And second, in many cases, some medical advice, some doctor's help might be needed. However, this does not, there are some folks who believe that this aspect of Saturn in 5th is bad for children, and that is not true. This Saturn's aspect, because Saturn is the lord of Lagna, first house lord, wherever it sits, wherever it looks, greatly enhances the significations of that house. So Saturn's aspect here will give them good children. They may get it a little late, they may have to go through some medical help, and that is fine, but this placement of Saturn is known to give more than one kids. It's definitely 2+ kids. Obviously, other influences on the 5th house and the lord of 5th house, which is Mercury in this case, and Jupiter, because Jupiter is the significator of children. Those positions are important as well. However, just this placement of Saturn, you can definitely say these two things, and also this, that it will give good children. It is conducive for getting more than one progeny, and the kids generally also do well in life. And I especially talked about this because many people come with this placement and they kind of fear about their lives or a probability of getting child in their lives. So I just wanted to clarify this part. I guess the video is enough long. I'll have to stop here. If you have, I know I have not covered every single item from this list, but if you have any questions related to any particular part, please feel free to put in comments. And thank you for watching the video. Please do like and share this if you have liked it. And I hope to see you again soon with some more interesting videos like this. Thanks again. Bye bye.